Somehow, Boro's playoff hopes are still hanging by the thinnest of threads, but we face 4 cup finals where we pretty much have to win all of them. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and another episode of the Project Boro preview show, and what will be the penultimate episode of the Project Boro preview show. I don't think I'll have time to preview the Sheffield Wednesday game, given the fact I am going away for a week at the end of the Easter weekend. So after this, we'll be back. The only preview will be the preview of the Coventry game on the final day, to which there may or may not be something still to play for. We'll have to wait and see, but at least as things stand now, this is the last, or the penultimate, preview of the season, unless Boro get themselves into a certain top 6, which looked very unlikely after the weekend's round of results, but we did want to keep a keen eye on what happened at the MKM Stadium, with Coventry, of course, going to Hull City, and with Hull's record at home, I felt sure that Coventry would get the job done. They nearly did, but they conceded late on, meaning they dropped points, and the gap to the playoffs has only grown to 3 points. And yeah, I get the argument that Boro are incredibly inconsistent. The trust and faith in this team is, and has always this season, been incredibly low, but you can't deny that a 3-point gap is not surmountable at this stage of the season, especially when Boro have a superior goal difference to Coventry. Now, it still likely means we'll probably have to go to Coventry on the final day of the season and win, which I don't think will happen, but at least for now, at this moment in time, 3-point gap for Boro is a lot better than what it could have been, and it means, as always, that it's been the worst part of this season, to be honest. The playoff carrot that's dangling in front of us remains just close enough for us to touch it, but far enough that we can't fully take hold of it. We're just in this excruciating bit of limbo when it comes to playoffs that we've been in all season. Are we in? Are we out? Just when we think we're out of it, we get pulled back in, and when we think we're in, we get pulled back out. It is honestly excruciating at this point, and it looks like it's not going to end just yet. And Boro's next proposition is Plymouth Argyle at home. Now, Plymouth, of course, are down towards the bottom of the Championship. They are rooted to the foot of the table, and they're fighting for their lives. That will make them, I still think, a very tough proposition, a real banana skin for Boro. They're a team who were maybe dead and buried a couple of weeks ago, but have been buoyed, and I'm sure will come to the Riverside with a spring in their step following a recent upturn in form that has gave them a fighting chance as well. A bit like Boro, we're 3 points off of our goal. Plymouth are now 3 points off of theirs because they sit rooted to the bottom of the Championship, but they are within 3 points of safety. Unlike Boro, though, they don't have goal difference on the hand, so you could say it's an extra point really in Derby's favour. But still, they've gave themselves a chance, and that's all I'm sure they would have asked for. They've won 2 of the last 3, both of them beating good teams, Norwich at home and Sheffield United at the weekend, in what was a thrilling comeback by the Pilgrims. But what is worth noting is, yes, Plymouth's upturn in form has come of late, but it has come mostly at home park. They still remain a pretty dismal travelling side in the Championship, and albeit their home form has gave them more than a chance, their away form has done them no favours whatsoever. They sit bottom, as I say, 9 wins, 13 draws, 20 defeats, 44 goals scored, a ginormous 82 goals conceded. The vast majority of them have been on the road. 8 of their 9 wins have been at home. Only 1 has been on the road, because even though they've had a resurgence of late, as I say, they are by far the worst side on the road this season. They're rooted to the bottom of the away league table as well. They've picked up only 1 single solitary away win all season. Did come recently, a month ago, at Fratton Park, but still, that doesn't dress up their away form at all. It is pretty diabolical. They've picked up 6 points other than that win, 14 defeats in 21, and the worst stat, you could say, is that they've scored a measly 8 away goals this season, conceding 46. They are not a good away side, and that's not really improved towards the end of the season either. But I will not count them out when it comes to Boro, because they did come to Riverside last season, I think it was, and I think they picked up their first away victory in a calendar year at the Riverside. So if there's one place where they have had success away from home in recent memory, there's not been many, but one of them grounds did happen to be the Riverside because, well, of course it was. So, yeah, form at the moment overall is good for Plymouth, but a lot of that joy has come at home park. So if this fixture was reversed, I'd probably be a lot more concerned about Boro's chances than I do at the Riverside. But still, we'll see how things go. Taking a closer look at Plymouth then and their overall numbers, you would think by their goal scoring that they're not a bad attacking side, but they are massively being masked by their overperformance. They are joint 17th for goals scored, joint with Derby with 44. You think, okay, it's not glowing, it's nothing special, but they're not a bottom three side for their goals and their goal scoring numbers, so you think, well, that's not too bad. However, when you dig deeper into their numbers, they've overperformed massively because they are by far the bottom side in the Championship for expected goals. They create by far the lowest number of high-quality chances in games with the lowest XG in the Championship. They've overperformed by almost 9 goals, which is pretty big. So they should have scored far less than what they actually have. So they've overperformed in front of goal, which has probably benefited them pretty well. And you can also back up them poor attacking numbers by looking at some of the others. They've got the lowest number of shots on target in the Championship, the lowest number of big chances in the Championship. They're one of the lowest accurate passes in the Championship, and they spend the least amount of time in the opposition's box in the Championship. So they are a pretty feeble attacking side, but have managed to overperform slightly, which makes their goal scored column at least look a little bit better than what it should. However, there is no dressing up their defence, no matter which way you look at it. They've got by far, and when I say by far, I mean they are in a league of their own when it comes to their defensive numbers. They have the worst defence in the league outright. 2 goals a game they've conceded this season. 82 goals they've let in. That is 16 more than the next closest team. The next worst team being Cardiff and then Pompey, who've conceded 66. So Plymouth's goals conceded is by far the worst in the Championship. And that isn't dressed up in any which way by their XG against, which is also the highest by a mile in the Championship. They've got the highest XG against in the league. They have underperformed slightly in the defensive numbers, so they have conceded more goals than what they should have, but that doesn't really make things look any better because they've still got an XG against of pretty much 75, which is still almost 10 more than the next worst team. So not only is this a Plymouth side that don't create many chances at all, they give up an absolute ton and they concede them chances as well. As I say, 2 goals a game is what they are conceding in general. You can't dress that up whatsoever. You can see the bombardment that is on their goal game to game. They've got the highest number of saves per match, roughly around 3.5 saves their goalkeeper has to make per game, with a total number of saves of 144. That is the outright most in the Championship. And another worrying defensive stat is they've got the lowest number of clean sheets by a mile as well. They've picked only 3 clean sheets in 42 games this season. That is 4 less than the next best sides, with Norwich, Hull, Cardiff and the likes with 7. So I'm sorry, Plymouth. I've got a soft spot for you, and I'd love it if you stayed up as a neutral, but I can't dress up that Plymouth are, barring their goals scored, but that's down to their overperformance. They're the outright worst attack in the league. They're the outright worst defence in the league. Put 2 and 2 together, that makes them the outright worst team in the league. They're also the worst away team in the league by a mile. You'd all like to think this is pretty conclusive. This is pretty straightforward. But we're talking about Middlesbrough Football Club. Nothing's ever straightforward. Before we take a look at Boro, a little look at Plymouth's team. Interestingly enough, they did opt for a different formation at home to Sheffield United. They played with 2 10s in that game. But I think a more accurate possible look at their formation could come from their last away game to Swansea, to which they lost by 3-0. They played a 3-4-3 that day. Whether they'll play the same formation again at Boro, I don't know. They might want to switch it up. But that's a formation that can quite easily adapt and switch to a back 5, which is something they might look to do. There's nothing stand out defensively, as I say, about Plymouth. But if there was a couple of players to keep an eye on, I'd say 2 of their attacking 3 on that day are 2 players to look out for, and that is Ryan Hardy and Mustafa Bundu. They are outright their most effective attacking players. Hardy has 12 goal contributions this season, 9 goals and 3 assists, with Bundu right behind him with 6 goals and 5 assists. They're outright the 2 biggest goal contributors in Plymouth's team. So whether they play with 2 10s behind a striker or they play with the front 3 with the pair of them up top, they're the 2 players who can bag a goal for Plymouth if necessary. So even though I wouldn't say there's that many players to look out for, I do think they are still players that Boro have got to marshal and certainly not underestimate, which I guess you could say about Plymouth's team as a whole. But taking a look at Boro's team, because for me, we have to make changes in the front 4. There's no question about it. I think the rest of the team still picks itself down to Boro's defensive limitations with injuries, so there's not much to be said about the goalkeeper, the back 4, or the midfield 2. For me, you have to make changes in the front 4 because whatever Carrick is persisting with simply is not working at this moment in time. I think Azaz on the left needs to stop, Bergzog on the right needs to stop, and I don't think you persist with neither Whittaker or Iheanacho because I don't think either have particularly took their opportunities, so I don't see why we don't rip it up and do something completely different. So I think Azaz is the only one who stays in. I think his numbers warrant him playing, and I do believe he will be better in his best position as the 10 directly behind the centre forward. But I'd change up the left, I'd change up the right. I think Riley McGree, even though we're frustrated with his injuries this season, if he's fit, we should play him. If we're frustrated that he's never fit, because that means we can't play him, then that doesn't make any sense if when he is fit, we don't desperately want to play him. Surely if we are so frustrated that he's never fit, we want to get as much out of him as we can while he is fit. So for me, I'd bring Riley McGree back onto that left-hand side. Still one of our most technically gifted footballers, and I think he will definitely help make that front 3 click. And I'd put Marcus Forss on the right, another player who's been a mainstay in Boro's team for a long time and has been fit for a while, but just hasn't been getting played. And I just don't think there's any excuse or argument or reason as to why you'd start Whittaker, Bergzog or Iheanacho ahead of Forss or McGree at this point. They've bided their time on the bench. They've had limited minutes. You give them an opportunity for me at home. And plus, I think they both give us arguably more of a goal threat, to be honest with you. I think Marcus Forss absolutely gives us more of a goal threat off the right. It's like having a second centre forward on the pitch with, of course, Tommy Conway starting up front. So the changes have got to come in the front 4 because, as we know, Boro have suffered massively up top in their last couple of games. Blackburn second half, Leeds and Millwall. That front 4 has let us down massively, so I definitely go about changing that. And then we look at the head-to-head. Now, this is where you do get a little bit worried about Boro, because if there's been one team we've been able to drop a stinker against of late, it's Plymouth, because since they've come back into the Championship at the start of last season, we've had 3 meetings and we've failed to beat them in each of them. We've had 2 goal fests at Plymouth with 2 3-3s, which I find astonishing. But as I say, last season they came to Riverside and picked up their first win on the road in what I believe was a calendar year, beating us 2-0 on what I believe was a very, very dark day at the Riverside. That cannot happen again. And if it does, things could turn very, very ugly. And quite honestly, it would just finish us off if we can't beat Plymouth at home. I know they're fighting for their lives, and that's the one thing that makes me a little bit cautious about this game, because they've come off the back of a big result. They've had joy at Boro in recent times, and they will be carrying a spring in their step. Boro could be a little vulnerable. We are under pressure where we have to win pretty much every game now. So there is an opening there for Plymouth Argyle. But despite what they might bring and the relative position and form of both sides, you cannot argue with the numbers. And the bottom line is Boro are being visited by the worst away side in the league. They're being visited by the side with the worst attack in the league in terms of the chances they create. And they're being visited by the outright worst defence in the Championship. There is no excuse on planet Earth as to why Boro should not win this game, and arguably win it comfortably. If we have any hope, or we want to at least prove that we have what it takes to either give the top 6 one last good go, or maybe even squeeze in there, you've got to be beating Plymouth Argyle. It's no disrespect to Plymouth. I like Plymouth. I want them to stay up. I've always had a soft spot for them. I'm only looking at the facts. And for me, if Boro fail to win this game, we don't deserve playoffs. And we may as well pack it up, go home, and screw off the last 3 games for me. So a Final 4 with 4 cup finals has to start with a win on Good Friday. Anything less would be an absolute disaster, simply put. And that's why I am backing Boro to do the job. Whether it will make a difference, we don't know. As I say, the fixtures on Good Friday do happen to be quite favourable for Boro. I mean, Bristol City host Sunderland, even though that might look tough on paper. Sunderland are very much in that going through the motions period to which we were 2 seasons ago when we made the playoffs early. They're just waiting for the season to end. So Bristol City, I think, could very well capitalise on that and beat Sunderland. And they've got a very good home record as well. So I kind of fancy Bristol City to still get the job done there, but it is a tough game still. Coventry have West Brom. They're the 2 teams directly above Boro. What a big chance for us to capitalise there. And Millwall go to Blackburn, who you never quite know what to expect from. So Boro have the easiest game of all the playoff chasers, and we have to take advantage. It would be very typical of us if we fail to do so, and if we don't deserve playoffs. If we do, we might even find ourselves back in the top 6 by the end of Good Friday, which would be absolutely ridiculous, but the least we can do is close the gap, and then we take it game by game and focus on Sheffield Wednesday. But this is a must-win. There is nothing else that can be said. Nothing less than a victory is required here. And a good victory as well. A good performance, I'd say, at the same time. So I'm going to go 2-0 Boro. Let me know your thoughts, feelings and predictions in the comments section below, whether you're a Boro fan, a Plymouth fan or neutral. As always, I will be back to review the game on Friday night. And then after that, I'm away for a week. I'm going to be spending probably most of Easter weekend getting packed, getting ready to go on holiday on Sunday night, and I am away up until pretty much the early hours of next Saturday, and I'll be back just in time to basically get back up to Teesside and head straight to the Riverside for the Norwich game. So as I say, after the Plymouth review on Friday, there'll be nothing until the Norwich review, and then we'll have the Coventry preview and review to finish the season, and we'll see where we're at come then. But yeah, we'll see what happens on Good Friday. A must win for Boro, as we still somehow have a half chance of top 6. I don't know how. I completely get why some people have written it off. I don't blame people for writing it off either, but while it's still right there for us, I still, for some stupid reason, live in some form of deluded hope. But we'll see what happens on Friday. But until then, take care, and I'll see you all in the next one.